Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, hi everyone, this week I'm still at the Great Dunmow Art Group here in Essex, and I'm going to show you the video that I produced on that evening. It's the second half video in which I paint this scene of a sunset that I actually saw not far from my studio here in Essex, and it made a good demonstration. So let me show you how I got on, and we'll see you at the end. Okay then, let's look forward to the second half. Now, I was walking, well, me and Linda were walking around Gallywood, which is where I live at the moment, and it was late one afternoon, and we looked across the fields and we could just see the sun going down, more or less sort of quite late. I don't think it had quite left the sky, but it was very much on the horizon. And I took a photograph and I thought, yeah, I fancy painting this. So I've done the drawing onto watercolour paper, and the key to this one is to create the feeling of backlight. So you're almost looking at silhouette. And I would recommend a scene like this to anyone, because if you're looking to paint trees, there's nothing better than to learn the structure of a tree than if it's in silhouette against a light sky or a lighter sky. So that is the key to learning to paint trees. Okay, pick up a clean background. If you've got clouds and everything going on behind, it can be very dramatic, but sometimes when you're learning you tend to think, you know, is the sky going to dominate the tree, or is the tree going to dominate the sky? But when you're painting just a flat backdrop with colour, then the tree definitely dominates the picture. So that's the theory behind it. Now, where do we start? Well, the sun was low, so it was getting dusk. So we're going to have quite a strong sky. Now, I have cleaned the palette so as I can get a little bit of fresh colour. And actually, I'm going to damp the sky this time because it's quite a large area. And I do feel if it is slightly on the damp side, it will tend to run. I'm not going to damp the lower part because we've got a lovely fresh blue colour at the top. And then as we come down into more or less a sort of like a red-purple colour before we get to the lovely orange, which is around that area, the sun just as it's slipping away. So I've damped the sky, so that should give us a clean run of paint. Now I'm going to use this, you could almost use any blue really, but I'm going to use cobalt blue. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? That's going straight in with the paint, that is. I like that. Let's put a bit of ultramarine with that too. There you go, look at that. Rub that in, there you go. Because I'm trying to pick up the feeling of a fairly strong sky at the top. Let's just go in with a bit of, ooh, look at that, that's really dark. Is that too dark? We'll only know when it dries, won't we? Don't be too. That final colour is the Prussian blue. So cobalt, ultramarine, then Prussian. We started off with the lighter blue, medium, and then the real strong blue. Good. Now I'm introducing a little bit of that to the lower area, and gradually it's running. The brush is running out of paint, which is good. Then when I get down to that area, where there's lots of splashes, which we rub off, which we don't worry about, I'm going to introduce a little of the, bit of water to this now, of the alizarin crimson, because that is the start of the glow of the sun. Right, clean the brush thoroughly this time and get rid of all that Prussian blue. Normally takes about a week to get rid of Prussian blue from the brush. Now, yellow. There we go, look at that. Let that bleed in. We're trying to get that lovely sun. Little bit of red, bit of cadmium red along that bottom line there to create that orange. Let's go on into the field as well. There we go. Just a little more yellow into that area there. There we go. Brilliant. Now you've got to remember it's going to dry considerably lighter. That's what I'm banking on anyway. And now, I'm now looking towards the actual fields themselves. Well, to start with, I'm going to use cobalt blue with the alizarin. So I'm going back to the slightly less intense blue for the very distant land. It's a little bit uneven, but not greatly. There we go. Then I'm going in with the cadmium lemon, or lemon yellow, whichever you want to use, with the cobalt blue to get a nice fresh green, because I did see a nice fresh green at about that point where the sun was still catching the field. Then, as we come forward, that green kept coming towards us like that. Oh, yes. Oh, look at that. And as I come forward, I'm going to introduce some red to that green, because red and green, as you know, are complementary colours, and also the red draws the foreground area towards you, right? So this area is much closer than that area. That's a more bluey green. This is a warmer, richer green, reddy green. Right, while that's still damp, I've now got to bite the bullet and really go in with Prussian blue and, what's that? Ah, look at that, look. Prussian blue and cadmium yellow. And I'm going to, have I got to do this? Yeah, shall I? Right. And this will be the shadow of the large tree later, once we put down the tree itself. That's good. Just now lightly, just before it dries, just soften that. We don't want it to be too stark change of colour, because once the light gets really low, the actual shadows appear less sort of defined, if you like, less clearly defined in the landscape. And then in the foreground, a bit more yellow, a bit more blue, bit more blue, leaving some of that underpainting shining through if we can. Here we go. Yeah, I think that does it. This is my small garden studio here in Essex in the UK. So even if you come home after sketching or back in the studio, I look at sketches, you can take a photograph, but it's that moment that you're there, that you're producing something either on paper or canvas if you are an oil artist or acrylic artist, and that's that time that you really connect with your subject. Well, a lot of people say to me, how did you start, or when did you start having an interest in acrylic or watercolour painting? And it was really in my, I suppose I was in my early teens when my art teacher went at my college said, you know, she thought I had a little bit of talent, but it didn't stand out particularly great. But she gave me a lot of encouragement, and over the years I was very interested. I went through all different mediums, oils, pastels, obviously acrylic and watercolour, and decided that watercolour was what I wanted to do, mainly because being brought up in a rural location in Essex, not far from my studio, about 10-minute drive down the road, a little village called Kelvedon, and in those days it was a small village, and I enjoyed walking around the countryside, and that is really what I'm all about, painting country locations, but not only inland but also on the coast. Well, I hope you enjoy watching my YouTube channel, and if you do, please subscribe, click the link, the logo on the bottom right hand corner, and also I don't charge for my YouTube channel, but if you would like to contribute, make a small donation of some sort, you can do so on the shared bar at the bottom that says thanks, and when you click the thanks, a little bar comes up and you can slide that along to contribute as much or as little as you wish to help me with the obvious expenses that I have running this channel. But in the meantime, happy painting. We hope to see you all at the next video. That's a bit of luck, isn't it? Yeah, it's drying out nicely, because that is the key. Oh, and I tell you what I do like about this. If you notice, we're getting some runbacks, right? Well, that is very useful there because it creates grass, right? Not quite as useful in the distance. That's a wood. Let's call it a wooded area, shall we? Yeah, that's good enough. Right. Now, I'm going to change to a smaller brush because I don't want that colour to, I don't want to be too, I want to be a little bit more sharper with everything now. So we've got a bit of distance, we've got that very low glow to the sun, and we have, right, we do have the silhouette really of a bit of hedging along the bottom of the field. Now, I'm going to use the Indian red now with the Prussian blue, because this is going to be my main area of, or my main mix for my shadows and trees. And if I, oh, there it is, wool stick. Right. We've got a little bit of hedge work there that sits onto that area there. Like all of these things, you know, it's a matter of building up your colours. There's a bit of it's sort of like a bit of a hedge sort of area, really, quite flat where it meets the land, but at the top it's quite uneven. At the moment, I'm only showing the hedging and bring that along to there. And now we get a bit of justification for the shadow. Now the brush, lose some paint from the brush, and we have some trees here that are in silhouette. A little bit of hedging there. There we go. A touch of Bob Ross, really, isn't it? You know, it's, you know, yeah, it's. I've got some. Well, funny enough, that is a good question because I've demonstrated at this angle, I've become so used to it that I've learnt to control the paint to a certain extent. But what I would say is that I'm more and more painting at this level, at this angle, because I find that I get lovely clean washes of colour, right? When you lay the board down, the pigments fill in the holes in the, if you're on rough paper, and it granulates. If you just tilt the board, the more you tilt, the less granulation you get, because the paint is moving till it dries. Instead of where it's laying, the pigments are coming away from the water, and the pigments look dark and the water is light, so you get a sort of like a mottled colour. Okay, so actually I'm painting upright more and more these days, and I do in the studio quite often. It's also handy when you're out, really, you know, to have it more at a bit of an angle rather than down and keep looking up. Yeah, that is a good point. I do tend to paint like this a bit more these days, and I think it's sort of like works, really. You know, it creates slightly different. You know, you get certain. The paint runs differently. You know, that's why I've got a sort of a cauliflower effect there, because if that's damp and this is dry, and that's wanting to grow up into that. So there we go. And this is going to have just a little bit more colour. Not as much as we get towards the sun or the light area. There we go. Good. I'm finishing that about there. So we'll come to there, and let's put another tree in the or shrub or whatever in the corner there. There we go. That's pretty much as it is, yeah. Good. Now that distance is dry, I'm going to paint in the distant land. Cobalt blue with cobalt blue with alizarin crimson. Blimey, just found that mix. That's brilliant. Look at that. Right, now we've got distant land. Now this should have gone in before I painted the trees in the middle distance. But having said that, we'll go with the flow and paint that in. I'll blow. Let's go over the tree. Let's not worry about the tree. And that is the darker land behind those trees there. There we go. Cool. Got away with it, I think. There we are. Yeah, so we've got, you can see the field extending behind those trees and behind the large tree. And the good thing, you know, that is not a brilliant sunset until you paint the dark tree in. Then all of a sudden it becomes a good sunset because you've got interest in front of it. You're not, you know, if I was just painting a sunset, I would have to put the sun in, you know, and elaborate a bit on the sky. But in this case, with the tree there, you don't need all that. So if you're looking to paint a sunset, try and have something that takes your eye away from the sunset itself, because that makes painting a sunset more simpler. Because the eye is drawn, you know, away from any major problems. Right, now let's use the rigger, because I did promise you that I would use the rigger right at the start of the demonstration, and it never really came into play in the last subject. So I'm going to try and use it this time, and mainly because I want to paint in the trees in a nice dark colour. Right, let's dispense with that. Right, let's get... we'll leave the large tree until later. Right, we have a tree here. And when you use the rigger to paint in a tree, push hard to get a hard edge or a thick line, and then gradually lift off to get the smaller branches. And if you do that, you can't go wrong. So you press hard to get the trunk and the smaller branch. Oh, the trunk splits there. Let's go a little bit thicker. And you can just flick some little bits and bobs in. Bits and bobs. There we are. So that's the first tree. Quite simple, really, structures of trees. This one comes from behind that bush. So that's a bit of luck, because that's actually still not dry in the background. So I saved that problem. There we go. Yep. Yeah, it's looking good. Okay. And then we have this larger tree. Could have gone in with a larger brush, but let's go with the rigger, because first time out, so we may as well use it, you know. Don't want them to fight in the container when they on the way home. Yeah, they could get rather jealous of each other, these brushes. Right, there we go. Yeah. It really is, you know, painting. It's a lovely exercise. That's what I'd call this. It's not, you know, a brilliant painting, but as an exercise, you can learn an awful lot about trees and the way the branches snake away from the trunk. You know, and there's nothing worse than putting in what I'd call a pitchfork effect, like that. So you've got a pitchfork effect. Well, if you do that, all you need to do is to put in another couple of branches, and all of a sudden you've lost that pitchfork effect. So, but every time you go higher up the tree, generally the branches would get more narrow. So make certain that you taper your trunk. The branches are fairly meaty when they leave the trunk, and then gradually they taper more narrow. But the very fine twig areas, well, they're another problem, which I'm going to show you very shortly. But oh well, let's leave that at that. Right, let's do the large tree now. I'm going to use the smaller mop brush for the large tree, and I'm going in with the same colour. Perhaps a bit more red. The red, the Indian red, will dominate the mix, because it will give. They're quite cool. They're blue grey. But if you make this one a warm grey, then it will dominate. Okay, and that's what I want this large tree to do. And it is in silhouette, so let's go in with that. Actually, I think I've drawn the trunk a little wide. So, but never mind. We can live with that. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to soften that where it meets that. Look at that, look. So much better if you soften where it meets the ground, because it actually sinks into the ground. If it's hard, it's all right if you want to show some lighter grasses, But if you want it to sink into the ground, you just soften it with a damp brush. And all of a sudden that bleeds into the ground and plants itself. Right, now we can really bash on and create the main trunk, which goes up like that. That's a bit fat up the top. Right, okay. Okay, well, we'll call that then where a branch leaves at. There we go. And you've got to make certain these lovely old oak trees have enough of a trunk to support the branches, but it doesn't want to look like a flipping great big trunk with little weedy branches coming off. So you've got to balance your trees. All right, it's all right looking at a tree and you know, you say, oh, that's an oak tree, right? Try and pick up the character of that tree, but don't put every single branch in, okay? That's the key to it, picking up the main character of the tree without the need for putting every single branch in. And we've got a large branch there. Let's make that just a bit wide. I think I did need it that width in the end. Look at that. Yeah, they're quite meaty in the lower area. That's good. Let's make it a bit more meaty there. There we go. Right, now we've got to that stage, we can now dispense with that. Actually, while I've got that, I'm going to put in, I promised you the twig areas, so I'm going to paint the twig areas of these trees. Start in the lower part. Oh, actually, it's not too bad. Take a bit of moisture off that. Right, let's go straight in at the top. The longer you paint, the better the brush gets. And it's a bit dense in the centre there, so nice dense area of twigs, a few twigs there. So gradually you're pulling in and across the paper, nice dense area there. There we go. And that's the way to produce sort of twig areas that are quite easy to paint, really. You know, you can spend hours putting in every single twig, but with that technique, a bit more red now, because I just want to just tidy up one or two edges before I go any further. There we are. Little touches there. Let's finish that off. There we go. Yes, there we go. Right, now I'm going to go in with the rigger for the main branches, and these are the bigger branches, so we're going to use this rigger to create these branches. Now, we've got not only branches that go up, we've got branches that come out and actually head down as well. And then we have a branch coming off of that. Now, these are not the real twig areas. Oh, we have these little sort of, oh, we've got a pitchfork, look. Look at that. Let's get rid of that pitchfork. I don't like that. How do you get rid of that then? Oh, there you go. Oh, well. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Whew, that was close. Right, now we're... And, of course, you have these little saplings, or whatever they're called, that break away in the lower area. And, of course, we've got loads of little bits and bobs going on in the lower area, the little grasses and what have you, which all adds to the feeling of the lower part of that tree. Just use the finger too, just to blend. Now we've got to paint in the tree itself, the main branches of the tree. So we're working our way up. Let's just paint in this one that's blobbed a bit there. I know what that is. That's a branch that's broken off. Oh. Doesn't look nothing like a branch that's broken off. Right, okay, let's just make it a branch then. There we go. That was a waste of time, basically. Right, another branch there. And I'm building up the tree. I'm looking at the tree there, and you'll see the basic branches that are there, but I'm gradually creating a good-looking tree, right? So you could say I'm sort of putting the makeup on, basically. You know, I'm changing. I'm trying to create a nice tree without coming away from the main shape that I can see on the original picture. And at the end you can probably, well, you will be able to have a look and see what I mean, really. I've tried to pick up, and you've got to remember that not all branches come out. Some go away from you, some come towards you. So you've got to make sure, I mean, that one is a typical example where it probably comes towards us because it's thick where it leaves the trunk, but it tapers very quickly. So it's foreshortened. So it's coming towards us. So it gets tapered very quickly. But if it comes out the side, the tapering is very slow. So that one looks as if it's coming towards us there, right? But that one is more or less going away. That one is just coming out the side. So it's balancing that tree shape up, really. And that's quite a meaty branch. I could have gone in with the rigger, with the other brush with that, but never mind. We'll plod on. And that's quite meaty, but there you go. Another meaty. Oh, let's just add a little bit more water. There we are, because I can get a slightly. Oh, and that also comes away from the centre, and that splits there. So I'm going to show that by going darker. Don't want to go too high up with this because I want to show you the fine, detailed. Let's go up a bit more there. Oh, and that. Oh, what's that bit there? Oh, right. There we go. That's coming down like that. There we go. Look at that. You can get yourself out of trouble if you're a little bit clever with the way you put in these branches. Loads of little branches at the top because they all seem to be heading up to the top, and some smaller ones in the lower area. There we are. I think that's the sort of thing that you'd probably call a good-looking basic structure of a lovely old oak tree. And as I say, when you paint these studies, try if you can to balance. You know, you can just paint one tree, but try and balance it with a couple of smaller ones that are less intense in colour, that actually make a picture, you know. Now, as you can see, the sunset in the background is just sinking behind. And there we have it. I've taken the surround away, and it just needs signing, really. And we do that with the paint that we've used. And I'm going to use red again. Always, I would say everybody should sign their work, okay? Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, all right? Purely because one day, in 150 years' time, it could be highly sought after. Always sign your work. And my name is Colinsteedart, although you'd never be able to know from the signature. And that has been my 2 demonstrations for this evening. Thank you all very much. Well, there you have it. A thoroughly enjoyable evening I had at the Great Dunmow Art Group. And this is the second half painting that I did. Lovely sunset. I think everybody enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed watching. And if you have, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you very much for watching. Happy painting.